Matthew 12:31, Unpardonable Sin, Alpha and Omega, Part 3. Laodicea fails the Omega of deadly heresies. In this discussion, you will discover Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies is the root cause of the unpardonable sin of Matthew 12:31, which Jesus said is the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit and also the perfect deception. And it's deadly. How deadly? Do you recall Hosea 4:6? My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. That thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. David told everyone, the measure of eternal righteousness is the law. Equals Psalms 119, 142. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Then a lack of knowledge of eternal righteousness by faith. At the sealing time of Revelation 7, what of it? But then ask yourself, why did Sister White present the following counsel? Read the 9th chapter of Ezekiel and the general slaughter. Have a slow read of this. Mark this point with care. Those who receive the pure mark of truth wrought in them by the power of the Holy Spirit, represented by a mark by the man in linen, are those that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the church. Their love for purity and the honor and glory of God is such that they have so clear a view of the exceeding sinfulness of sin that they are represented as being in agony, even sighing and crying. Read the 9th chapter of Ezekiel. But the general slaughter of those who do not thus see the wide contrast between sin and righteousness, and do not feel as those do who stand in the counsel of God and receive the mark, is described in the order to the 5 men with slaughter weapons. Go ye after him through the city and smite. Let not your eye spare, neither have ye pity. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women. But come not near any man upon whom is the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. How deadly? Does Ezekiel 9 now make sense in the final atonement? Let alone why Sister White trembled for the people? But then, the great deception of the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies that would be, as she said, received, and then was this why she held its bearing in the sealing time of Revelation 7? Does it not make sense now? Why she spake of the wide contrast between sin and righteousness? This, then, brings you, the reader, to the biggest problem facing Laodicea, their rejection of knowledge about everlasting righteousness in the first angel's warning, and why it must be about Matthew 12:31, the unpardonable sin. You will see shortly why the foolish virgins rejected knowledge, Hosea 4:6, and committed the unpardonable sin. It's repeated. Does it not make sense now why Sister White spake of the wide contrast between sin and righteousness? That this wide contrast is in the context of Revelation 7 and Ezekiel 9, and that sin equals the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies, equals she trembled. Righteousness equals eternal righteousness by faith, equals is rejected. Does it not now make sense, Sister White said, about the pure mark of truth equals no guile, and that this is eternal righteousness by faith, which is fully integral to the sealing time of the 144,000? Even the special counsel to Laodicea found in 3T 267 and 5T 210, that without that seal of God, equals Revelation 7, what really is the cost in deadliness? Sister White really mean the general slaughter for Laodicea by the 5 men with the sharp weapons in their hands? Make the wrong decision today, this moment of time, and take no care for the details of Ezekiel 9, then what? Take a deep breath. What is the cost? What is the loss? Answer. Lost, seal of God, in the sealing time of Revelation 7, described by Sister White, the sealing time of the 144,000. Lost, never to be sealed with the pure mark of truth. And there is much more. The Omega of deadly heresies robs men of much and the cost, general slaughter. But suffice for now. There is a critical aspect. You must do your own research in eternal righteousness by faith. It's all there in the sanctuary doctrine. Day of Atonement at the court Ezekiel 9, and why it is infinitely important. Well, without it, one is not sealed and has to deal with trumpet number 5. And then the first and second beasts of Revelation 13. For the simple reason Revelation 13, 8, and 9 is there to tell you why. But as Sister White said, Laodicea continues in the forms of religion, 5T 210. Yet all the while Laodicea believing they are blessed by he who made. What was the true witness's counsel for Laodicea? To buy gold tried of him, gold of him tried in the fire, and that gold is his eternal righteousness. It is his eternal deity, his eternal divinity, equals Father number 2, equals Isaiah 9, 6, and John 14, 9, equals John 1, 1. It means that gold all along is eternal righteous by faith. That gold is the seal of God of Revelation 7. This gold is the foundation for the purposes of Revelation 13:8, and absolutely necessary to first angel's warning with the testimony of he who made, because he is the true Alpha and Omega, and one is sealed in testimony for the 1290 days of Revelation 13. Be warned. The following is quite something to consider. How deadly is the Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies? And what of it? The Omega of deadly heresies equals fundamentals 2 and 4. The Omega of deadly heresies is blasphemy. Note how Matthew 12:31 is involved. What has the Omega of deadly heresies got to do with Matthew 12:31? He who made says the unpardonable sin is the sin against the Holy Spirit. The unforgivable sin is squarely related to the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies. Christ said, "Wherefore I say unto you, all manner of sin and blasphemy shall be forgiven unto you, but the blasphemy against the Holy Spirit shall not be forgiven unto men." What cost is the unforgivable blasphemy of the Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies? It shall not be forgiven unto men, and the conclusion is extremely deadly. Therefore, there is no seal of God in the time of Revelation 7, the sealing time of the 144,000. The sanctuary doctrine is so unique and yet so provocative as a doctrine generally, and is perceived as controversial in theological circles, yet ignored. But then with Ezekiel 9 and 3T 267 and the seal of God in 5T, the wise realize this sanctuary doctrine involves the man with the rider's inkhorn. And if you are familiar with the sanctuary doctrine, the final ministration equals sealing of the men in linen equals cleansing of guile occurs in the court. Yet everyone in ignorance say, "Oh, you have lost your marbles," not realizing and forgetting Matthew 12:31 exists and its cost. The cost is far worse for Laodicea. So why talk about Isaiah 2 once more? Well, the law of one equals the 7 Noahide is blasphemy unto he who made, and inexcusable to the first angel's warning. Therefore, unforgivable sin. The other contiguous proof is when you read the extent of the blasphemy of the first beast. Read Revelation 13. Who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. Power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Then the son of perdition, equals the 8th king, is all about the law of Isaiah 2. Goes forth in this, then, another Omega of deadly heresies and full-blown spiritualism, and it is deadly and unforgivable. In the context of the Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies that Sister White trembled, Matthew 12:31 is very real. Therefore, Hebrews 6:4-6 becomes a reality. Matthew 12:31 in summation. In part 2, you read how Laodicea faced and is to be facing multiple Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies scenarios. The first facing Omega of deadly heresies was the 27 fundamental beliefs. The second facing Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies is facing first beast, equals 1260 days, and the son of perdition. Then a third Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies is facing the second beast. Then there's the ultimate expression, which is the 29th scenario of the Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies that coalesces at Armageddon, equals Revelation 16. The foolish virgins lost all. Yes, that's the cause of why Allos Parakletos withdraws from the earth. Yes, that is absolutely true. The first of four omegas of heresy and its failure represented in the first with the 27 fundamentals, 2, 4, 5. The second will catch them by surprise, thinking that it's the Papa Pointy Hat and they would have to recover at the loud cry of Revelation 18. But since they don't realize the destruction of Vatican City was the key to unraveling the reasons for the apostasy from the first angel, this means that rejection of this evidence equals the second angel's call of the fall of Babylon equals, and the fall of Pointy Hat, Papa Pointy Hat, results in unity conscious acceptance. The third irony will just bring Laodicea into line as a corporation along with individuals with the worship of the beast, as well as the dragon, along with the more emergent globalism of the vendors of false oil and unity consciousness, equals sparks of their own kindling, which descend from the so-called higher consciousness of Lucifer's appearances, as well as the false prophet of Matthew 24. The fourth being the final test for Laodicea, which closes the door on the individual as sealing time of Revelation 7 equals Ezekiel 9. Then looking at the second beast and its ruling plus 30-day time frame, there is the number of the beast equals 666. It's the number of a man. To obtain the mark in right hand or forehead is easy. The antithesis to the mark of the beast is the seal of God, which makes Revelation 7 of critical importance in the sealing time. And to be sealed to the refusal of the mark, the refusal to worship the image, and it's repeated is why Revelation 7 is so important. Otherwise, it's Matthew 12:31. And the entire deal is arranged to not be able to buy or sell. So how is that related to the 7 Noahides? Equals Deuteronomy 6:8. Concerns Deuteronomy 6:4, the Shema. When it comes to conform, the non-Tefillin wearers must have the mark or the number to be good goy in the economic community. Well, if you don't go along with the 7 Noahide program, you won't be in the economic golden age system. Seems the mark and the number are auxiliary discussions to be had early enough to be able to be part of the matrix prior to the plus 30 days. From the third temple perspective, how is the worship of the image not idol worship and contrary to the 7 Noahide laws? How does the one transgress the 7 Noahides when the image is an idol? Seems it cannot be an idol, as in the dedication of the image of the king of Daniel 3, right? Like, wow. And therefore, based on the presentation of the Midrash in their adjudications, one would have to be able to situate the distinction of idol worship. For Japheth, the Mashiach is worshipped, and according to the 7 Noahides, the Mashiach is to be accepted by the Goy as the true Mashiach, and the Goy would not know it's not real deal, because all along the Goy are expecting the Antichrist, but many are deceived, not knowing the difference. If the 7 Noahides are to be what they say to be, that is, for the Goy, then what is idol worship? The acceptance of Beni David equals God the Eternal Son, which is no different to the Roman Catholic Church version. And if the Goy do not bow to the image set up by the Antichrist, the 8th king, the oppressive law, then what? It's the image is a false god. It's blasphemy against he who made. And according to the 7 Noahides, that is to be punished over worshiping idols. So why does Japhet not accept partners, but accepts the image to be true? And then, this is full expression through the miracle working false prophet who brings to life the image. In other words, to worship or not worship the image is a no-win situation either way for the goy, as constructed on the 7 Noahides. The miracle-working false prophet must have an arrangement with Japhet at the full transfer of power from the first beast to the second beast, as noted in Revelation 13, which is to cause life to be brought into the inanimate and all to worship. But of course, 7 Noahides equals number 1. 7 Noahides number 1 has all bases covered when it comes to accepting false idols or defying the one God. It's really a basic deal, like Daniel 6, 7 to 12. And the law, an equivalent of the lion's den, for 30 days, and what could also include the plus 45 days out unto the 1335. When the focus is zoomed in on the idol worship of the image of the beast, the cultural aspect, as well as true biblical teaching, prohibits this, yet it is still carried out. Yet there is a paganism, witchcraft, steeped within the folkloric traditions of Japhet in relation to the golem, an image created from mud, so that is actually the precursor of the concept. Yet the image can be a machine projected worldwide on social media. You will note the movie Terminator is mentioned. The movie construct was time travel from 2029 back to 1984. Interesting date analogy because of the emphasis these days to 2030, which is referred today like everywhere. But more so is the fact the earlier date range was the time frame of the fulfillment of Luke 21:24. And the shooting forth of the fig tree never abated from 1980 equals Luke 21:29. And that's interesting considering the fact that it's going to be Japhet who will be highlighted as the nation that develops all this tech and blesses the world, sarcastically speaking, with this golem. Conclusion 1, Japhet who will be highlighted as the nation that develops all this tech and blesses the world with this golem. Yep, it's the fig tree parable in full bloom. See Luke 21. Conclusion 2, you now have Japhet's idea of their version of the key of David. With the 7 Noahides, Japhet apparently shut down the problem of endless wars with eternal peace on earth, is confirmed in Isaiah 2:4. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn to war any more. Then there are those unlimited signs and wonders of Matthew 24, unlocking the limitations imposed on mankind. Everyone is in awe of the golden age. The liberators, with their key of David, with the blessed nation, have solved the problems of mankind, including what they say is best kept secret, which is eternal peace because of their 7 Noahides. Moral law is global for all men. Keep in mind the 2 witnesses of Revelation 11 are also involved in the reign of the first beast. And this fact will really disturb Laodicea because it is not so believed to be the case. Well, it is. Holy fire. The beast and the miracle working false prophet, they are separate individuals with the same purpose. With regard to the beast and the miracle working false prophet, both were thrown into the lake of fire, whereas the devil was cast into the lake of fire after the millennium. Notice in Revelation 13, the miracle working false prophet brings fire down, and historically it was meant to convey to the Muslim world that the church had power. Would it mean the same today regarding the earth as being the territory of the beast, especially after the Friday keepers have been taken down by the 7th king, the king of the north? Later, all 3 are cast into the holy fire of the lake of fire. Investigative journalism in reference to holy fire. See this link. From the investigative journalists, the accounts of the blue flame have lasted the test of time. But whether true, that's another matter. But as mentioned, the Friday one God guys needed a reminder of who had the real power. The miracle-working false prophet will have the proselyte market cornered, and bringing fire down from heaven is for all to see. But the question is it the same as the holy fire needed for the third temple Pentecost? The fire comes down and ends any doubt and brings a euphoria of unity consciousness. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. The power of the first beast is epic to destroy and blaspheme. The second beast gets the right of passage, plus power, to do all sorts of things. The 3.5 years of the third temple was an epic test. The last 30 days of the 1290 is the final push for all to bow. Elijah versus Baal. The miracle-working false prophet can be seen in the tight comparison of Elijah and the 450 prophets of Baal. Yet the holy fire for the third temple has no contenders. Why? The two witnesses are gone. Allos Parakletos has withdrawn from the earth. And keep in mind, there was no holy fire prior to Revelation 13:12-13. Equals the 1260-day reign of the first beast. It's the final contention of the first angel, the reality of the third angel's warning. The other question is whether the holy fire is in the land of the second beast or over in the great city. But one thing is certain. Isaiah 2 says the origination of events occurs at the great city, and then after the second beast, and includes the fire of the miracle-working false prophet. Fire comes down and ends any doubt and brings the euphoria of unity consciousness. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from the earth, from heaven on the earth, in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live. The second beast exercises all the power of the first beast, and that would have to include a 7 Noahide decreed in the early days of the 1290. Whereas the second beast brings in its ultimate expression, speaks as a dragon, and what do you get? Another iteration of the Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies. Oh, the extreme form of 7 Noahide, which includes capital punishment, no buy, no sell, gotta bow to an image. So what is sealed in your forehead at this point? The seal of the two fathers' name? Or not? The destruction of the saints by the 8th king equals lion-mouthed beast, equals Daniel 8:23 and 25. And the cost? Yeah, equals Revelation 20 verse 4. This is not a perceived blasphemy which runs counter to 7 Noahides, so the treading down of the saints for 42 months would involve this matter that brought to light a while back. 10 kings. Now, with respect to the 10 kings of Revelation 17, which is involved with the end events of the latter days, it needs to be understood that the keys of this blood by Malachi Martin, where he mentions that all of these provincial globalist groups, 10 kings, would have to expand their globalist mentality and cease to commend their so-called identity in their region of the world and conform to a global mindset or cease to exist as oppressive, operative parts in the emerging global system. Spiritually, this has already been accomplished with Laodicea's new movement, and as Sister White said, nothing would stop it. And the loss? With Fundamentals 2 and 4, Laodicea has abandoned the confines of the three angels' warning in order to embrace the globalist mindset of baptism, Eucharist, and ministry as predicted. The Eastern Orthodox Church has a history of unity consciousness, as seen with hesychasm, if I'm pronouncing that right, practiced on Mount Athos, and can logically be used to eliminate the poppy pointy hat in the West, on account of poppy pointy hat's historic bailout and rescue by the way of the Orthodox in 554 AD under Justinian. The Western poppy pointy hat owes a debt to the East, and payback time is soon to arrive with events of Revelation 17, 12-16, and Revelation 18, which Isaiah refers to as striking the hand with foreigners. This will be the next in line discussion next week. Sister White termed that as stretching of the hands across the gulf to employ spiritualism. You know by now, Alpha and Omega of Deadly Heresies is spiritualism, and also Robert Sefer described the Magan state in present-day Japhet, and the mysticism of Mount Athos is no different. A regional accommodation which would eliminate the Papa Pointy Hat and bring about a more compliant system, involving a 7 Noahide. The Orthodox view is not out of the question, since the Papa Pointy Hat itself has already ascribed to Zionism, which goes to prove that these occult Magan systems can mutate to suit changes, just as the Magan movement is now bring the land of the second beast into an alignment with the one God, and it's all done by the M guys underneath the table. Think about it. The dragon was cast where the beast and the false prophet were already burning. The dragon, the old serpent equals Lucifer. Isaiah 14 and Revelation 17, 8 and 11 equals beast that was, is not, yet is. The beast, incarnate version of Satan, equals son of perdition. See John 17, 12 equals the 2 Thessalonians 2 guy. Miracle working false prophet equals another incarnation of Lucifer. That proves heteros, another spirit, and not allos parakletos equals the Holy Spirit. Summary. The Triune Trinity had been the standard bearer for the Alpha and Omega of Deadly Heresies for centuries. Laodicea, to withstand cult status in the Christian community, made official the Triune Trinity and God, Eternal Son, and seems fitting the Alpha and Omega of Deadly Heresies is represented at the time of destruction in the lake of fire. The real fire? The real fire is, of course, the true Alpha and Omega, first and last, and as seen by John, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like undefined brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So it gets back to what Matthew 12:31, and the true Holy Spirit, the another comforter, allos parakletos, and why Alpha and Omega of Deadly Heresies is the unforgivable sin, Matthew 12:31. Heteros, allos. Let's quickly return to word meanings in respect to their association with the Holy Spirit and its relation to the Alpha and Omega of Deadly Heresies, Matthew 12:31. What is interesting is the word heterodoxy means doctrines at variance with an official or orthodox position. Heteros, from the heteros perspective, Japhet will be highlighted as the nation that develops all this tech and blesses the world, sarcastically speaking, with this golem because of the matter with Deuteronomy 6:4, the Shema. Sounds like it's Japhet's idea of the key of David, the 8th king of Daniel 8 and Isaiah 2. Indicates Japhet apparently unlocked an eternal age of peace on earth. He who made said in Matthew 24, those unlimited signs and wonders legitimized the unlocking of the limitations of peace imposed on mankind. Therefore, the 8th king in this time frame equals abomination of desolation of Matthew 25, equals 1260 days, that as you read, by peace shall destroy many. They be liberators of the world with their key of David version as the blessed nation, resolving the intractable problems of mankind, wars, and as Isaiah 2 stated, peace is based on the 7 Noahides moral law, which is the same as you see in Daniel 8, 24 and 25. The heresy, there is no other authority than heaven when it comes to the fact that the Alpha identity of Christ is as in everlasting righteousness equals eternal righteousness by faith, which exposes the heinous and blasphemous error of an eternal or emanated sonship. This is best summarized as Laodicea's God the Eternal Son, heresy, fundamental belief, number 4, that invoke the Omega blasphemy on the Alpha of John 1:1 as Laodicea's main doctrine of Christ, fundamentals number 4, which means Laodicea blasphemes the Holy Spirit of Matthew 12:31, and do not advance by one jot or tittle Christ and his everlasting righteousness equals the everlasting gospel, and have obliterated in the process the first angel's warning. And then, like the failure of 1888, forget about eternal righteousness by faith, which is why they don't see eternal righteousness by faith importance for Revelation 13:8. So write in the comments section and explain how they claim to be giving the third angel's message in verity. In the meantime, the abomination of desolation of Matthew 24:15 brings to fruition the omega of deadly heresies of the 2 Thessalonians 2 guy, thus being the sonship of Beni David, which in the Kabbalah book would be considered possibly as the highest emanation. Since their 10-10 tree of life doctrine reveals the 10 aspects of the one God's character, they might say that he is the Ketur or crown, and prior to that is probably Lucifer, who also claims to be the void energetic consciousness itself as the father of the human race. And the Mithraic mysteries as being born in a cave appears to hint at that concept, self-birth. Result is that worship is rendered to the beast as well as the dragon, equals Revelation 13. Anyone beginning to see the issues? Then pray tell, why would the man of sin, aka the son of perdition, be considered the highest consciousness of the universe at the time of the 1290? Well, it's there in Isaiah 14. The 2 Thessalonians 2 guy goes into the third temple, Holy of Holies, and is the Mashiach, which is representative, on earth as the footstool of Mount Zion, equals abomination of desolation, Matthew 24:15. Fact is, the second temple had been left desolate from the time of Jesus, Matthew 23:38. And how would a third temple obtain a reversal of the curse? Only supernaturally. Or have you so soon forgotten Matthew 23:38 already? What this highest consciousness represents is a sign of deep disrespect to eternal righteousness of John 1:1. The result? Eternal disrespect. Any of its enemies' specious doctrines deserves everlasting punishment. In Matthew 12:31, beginning to make sense yet? Who knows? There might be an everlasting hellfire for the dragon, the beast, and the miracle-working false prophet. All others are burned up root and branch. If not, it might last for a very long time. Think about it. The dragon was cast where the beast and the false prophet were already burning, from the time frame of the commencement of the millennium up to the end of the millennium, which is where the devil is cast in alongside them. Conclusion? Laodicea faces the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies in all future scenarios. After forfeiting the seal of God is something you should not despise, but earnestly seek he who made for light about eternal righteousness by faith. Eternal righteousness by faith, John 1:1, is the first angel's message in verity. Eternal righteousness by faith equals John 1:1 equals Christ and his eternal righteousness in verity. Discussion on Matthew 12:31 with Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies could be continued, but you yourself will have to search the pearl of great price. Why? What is the cost of the sealing time of Revelation 7? The unforgivable sin, blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. The Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies presents Matthew 12:31 in its proper and final context.